Classic stew. Oh,
Dun, dun, dun.
oh.
The sweet release.
That's interesting.
Is today the final grand finale of Bow Launch?
Yeah, pretty much. There's still random stuff that I haven't gotten. But like main bows themselves launching per brand, this is the last one. And I'm pretty sure we're okay on dates with what you said when this would be out. I think we're past that.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure. If not, we might have to pause it for a day, but I think it's good.
Okay.
Timeline-wise.
Are we going to see anything interesting trickle in this year, or that's kind of it? We're kind of over the hump.
My guess is we're over the hump. I don't think we're going to see anything jump out, unless somebody's just so far off in sales that they get antsy, because most of these bow manufacturers have additional years ready or plans for years ready, and when shit goes south on them, they might like make a mid-year launch, that sort of thing, going, we need to do something to drive sales because we're not doing well. That's when you'll see random weird stuff come out in the middle of the year. It's usually a good indicator, which is not always accurate, and it's not a guarantee. But if a bow manufacturer is launching stuff in the middle of the season or middle of the year, like May, June, July, August, if they're launching a new bow, then they're probably not doing well, because there's no reason for them to launch that then, because that's just going to cannibalize sales that they should already get from the other ones. So that should simply indicate that those ones aren't doing as well, if you see that.
Yeah.
So, this should be it. I mean, granted, there is a new APA, and I did reach out and asked if they wanted me to review one. And said somebody will get a hold of you, and haven't. There's, is it Expedition, I think?
Yeah, that's another
I think
direct-to-consumer brand, right?
Oh, well, they're not just direct. They're both.
Okay.
Like you have shops and direct. They've never sent me a bow to test. I've never reached out and asked for one. I figure if you feel it's valuable, like there's enough of it out there. If you wanted it done, you can send me a bow and I'll do it. I don't have a problem with that. I don't take any money or anything like that. It's just like, I'm just testing product. You want to send me a product to test, I'll test it. So those could show up, and there's a couple of Dartons that I have to do still, and a couple of Matthews that I might do. I don't know if I'm going to redo the title 36 and 38, because they just changed the timing, the wheeling thing. But I never did a title 36 last year. I only did the 38, because that's what they sent on launch. And then by the time I actually got a 36, I was buried and didn't do it. And then BoTech had a Solution LS that they hadn't sent me a bow for yet. So it's out, but I don't have one. So I have no way to review it. So I might still do that, but I think that bow's a limited run. And so it's kind of like, you're only making this many of these, and I'm going to review it. And by the time that review even gets out, maybe you don't even have them anymore. So I don't know how relevant it is. I try to go off of what I feel is relevant to the consumer.
Well, in the interesting wide world of weird shit that seems to only happen in the archery industry, the Excel driver site was like, I don't want to say it was launched, because I guess product's not available. Is that
Correct.
true?
I've got 100 of them on order.
Yeah.
We're taking pre-orders.
But
my Hoyt sales rep supposedly was like the first person to find out it was existing, and ordered 3 of them and said the second he gets one, he'll send it to me.
But the way the marketing looks, you would swear the product was launched, but I guess it's just a video to show consumers that this product is coming without a launch date, which is wild. I can't really understand why.
Oh, you want me to explain it? Or do you have theories and want to
I
go
mean,
off your theories?
there's not going to be a good explanation for it, but you can tell me why.
I can tell you exactly why.
Yeah.
My knowing what occurred this last year.
Yeah.
So Matthews wanted their own site that was a movable site.
Yeah.
Well,
and Matthews has some history of working with Excel.
Yeah.
Like
yeah,
the previous year, Excel made a site just for the Matthews, right?
So you'll probably notice this year, if you're paying any attention at all, that there's 3 significant new sites this year in the high end, right? There's an Excel driver, which ironically isn't hardly more expensive than the Landslide. It's very similar in price with some new features.
Which is approximately... like
there's such a
550?
spread depending on the head on it, but like figure 500 or under for the most part. I think there's a couple of configurations that exceed $500, but there's also some configurations that are in the low 4s. So it varies, right? And you can, with the Excel, you can get a direct mount base, you can get a carbon dovetail, you can get a Picatinny mount, and they all have different prices to them, right? So it's a it's a gobbledygook of options. I really wish that site manufacturers would just stick to one price and let people pick their configurations and just have that price be based off of, 3/4 of the way up of what you would charge on cost and average it, because it gets so complicated to keep things right and priced. I mean, you'll accidentally price crap wrong just because there's so many different choices and options, you get confused.
Yeah, so many different head styles, so many different pins.
Yeah, for sure. But
Yeah.
like I was saying, you'll notice that there's 3 brands that all came out with a new site all at the same time that are all similar features.
Who's the third? We're talking about Matthews, Excel, and
Arxos Proof.
Arxos. Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
I was
Arxos
familiar
Proof.
with that.
Well, so the rumor mill is Matthews went to all 3 of those companies to make them a site and picked one. Well, the other 2 just released them. So my assumption, this is not something I've been told, okay, but my assumption is Excel, the reason they launched that when they did is because they wanted to put it out before Matthews launched their site, if I had to guess. And the only negative with the Matthews UltraView collab is you can only get that site in the Matthews bracket, right? So it's only going to go on a Matthews, and you've got to run that. I know there's a period of time that they have to make that site exclusively for Matthews before they can make that like their own site.
Doesn't Excel have a history of doing this, though, with other products?
Launching products when they're not ready?
Yeah.
Not necessarily. Excel's got a history of not being able to meet the demand of the product. So they have a tendency to release a product and not be able to keep up. Like when the landslide came out originally, I want to say it was at one point over a year behind, like for orders. And I just started getting frustrated and said, screw it, give me a year and a half's worth of orders now and put them in every 2 weeks. And eventually you're going to get caught up and then I'll start getting product. Right. So once we got through that first year, which it was all around COVID when products were so hard to get anyway, people were just used to not being able to get stuff. And most shops wouldn't put an order in for something that was going to take a year plus to get. So they didn't reorder. So I had all this stuff booked in over like a year and a half. And once it finally got to my turn, I didn't run out for the most part. So I was one of the only places you could get an Excel landslide for a long time. Like Lancaster would get them because I think they do a similar way to ordering that I do. Not probably as aggressive and not probably, they probably rely more on their industry image and their, what's the best way to put this?
History?
I'm not going to say history, no. History, sure, but that's not what I'm getting at. I'm getting at their, what's the word?
Clout?
No, just don't say anything. Give me a second. It's their defensive-ness of the manufacturer. That's not really the word I want to use, but let's just say that. Every video that they ever put out is protecting and defending the manufacturer. And my guess is they probably do it that way to weigh favor when it comes to getting orders.
Pump them to the front of the line?
Yeah, saying, hey, we're going to take care of Lancaster because they take care of us, right? And that was the thing I was worried about
Scratchy?
Yeah, that was the thing I was mildly worried about of taking the stance that I take on these things is I'm not going to protect you. I'm not going to coddle you. I'm not going to baby you. I'm going to be as honest as I can about what I see. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm an idiot, and that's fine too. But I'm going to hold you accountable for what you say your product does, period, no matter what. And sometimes you're not going to like it, but you can also listen to what I'm saying and learn from it and grow from it and make a better product. Because at the end of the day, I simply want products to be better for this industry. And I'm not going to, play favorites to get a better position with a manufacturer. I will not do it. I know there's a lot of people that think I play favorites to Matthews. I do not. I just simply think they're making a better product right now. And that's not going to last forever. They're not going to always have, like, when you weigh everything out and look at it on paper and go, well, God, why wouldn't you buy that one? Right? They're not going to have that forever. They're not going to. There's no way they will. Either that or those end up everything being them and everybody else dies, which I don't expect by any means. But right now, I do think they're making the best product at the moment. I would still encourage you to try them out and use them and get a feel for them and decide if that's the bow you like the best. But on paper, I don't know how you're beating that product. I just don't. But in any event, that's part of, I think, why Excel ran that site out, is they wanted to make sure that they released their site at a way less price than what Matthews released the UltraView site at. And maybe Excel was a little upset that they didn't go with them. Mm-hmm. Maybe they just figured it was going to happen no matter what because they already had a relationship with them. But they didn't. They went with UltraView.
Yeah, I kind of have mixed feelings, I guess, or evolving thoughts on trademarks. I heard Elon say recently that
Do say it.
trademarks aren't good for innovation. And it got me thinking. I was like, yeah, that's true. But also, how do we protect, thing that's like intellectual property?
Well, isn't that more of a patent, not a trademark? Isn't a trademark a brandage? Trademark's like your brand.
A patent. Did I say trademarks earlier?
You said trademark.
Okay.
Yeah, patents.
Patents.
And honestly, I agree with Elon. Patents are not good for business.
Yeah, patents. Let me go back to patents. So how are we going to protect a business or an idea? How does that happen without a patent? And because commerce is becoming so global now, even if it's patented in the U.S., we still see it get bastardized outside the U.S., right?
That's right.
So we're really only butting heads with each other.
With American companies.
Yep. Because who's going to knock it off? Likely in China. It's probably already knocked off. So particularly when I saw all these, I saw the Excel thing, which looks so similar to the UltraView site.
Yeah.
I was like,
Which you can't get it in hand yet, so there's no way you can really tell how close it is to
this
it.
Is
but
just
it looks very similar.
Looks similar, and this is just what I seen on their video with their internal componentry, which looks like it hasn't changed a whole bunch.
Yeah, which that is a prototype. That's not a production site, and that's part of why, from what I understand, nobody else has gotten one because they didn't want to ship out a prototype to anybody to review.
So all that to be said, I'm not sure exactly how that little shakeout's going to shake out. The dialed site is the one that seems the most different than the three. It seems like they stayed pretty unique to their path.
They put the right adjustments in it.
Yeah.
So I'm absolutely giving that a chance, and that I have a review on that site that I haven't put out yet that I will shortly because we did get one in, and we're going to start carrying them too.
I'm interested in that because their V1 was very cleanly looking. But, I mean, it was like a typical V1 product might be. There were a couple things that...
Missing some features,
some features that if you're going to spend that amount of money on a site, the kind of features you would typically come to expect. So I'm excited to see what they do with it. But, yeah, what shakes out with the Excel and UltraView thing will be interesting because it seems like it seems pretty similar.
Oh, it is 100%. And I'm with, personally, I'm with Elon. I think that... patents are bad for innovation because it forces you to take an idea and not try to find a way to improve on it. Only the originator of the idea can improve on it, and that's bad. That's rough in the long run. Now, if you have a unique idea that's your own, you can always make people sign an NDA and present it to them and gauge their interest and sell them the idea or get hired on as part of a bigger company doing that if patents didn't exist.
Well, and what I've come to learn about patents, too, is patents get really expensive to maintain over time.
They are. Like, you better be making a whole ton of money. Like, patents in the archery industry make 0 sense to me.
Yeah.
Unless you're a bow company and you got a lot of money. They're just really expensive to maintain. And the product price has to be high enough to warrant being able to sue somebody over it, right? Because at the end of the day, anybody can make anything, and you can sue them and try to get them to stop. And then will a court grant you winning or whatnot when they're going to come into it saying, well, my product's at least 15% different than yours.
Yeah.
And the patent only has to cover, 10% variance or whatnot, if I remember right? So, yeah, the whole patent thing just seems, at this point, I know that's not really great to people who have invented products, right, themselves.
Well, how long have patents been around for?
A long time.
Right. So if it's 1910 and I hold a patent and you knock my patent off, like, that kind of sucks, right? Because we're in a similar area.
You see the hairs up there?
You see this nice mustache? You can't have that. You see this nice shirt? Very nice wool shirt. Josh doesn't know about alpaca wool, I don't think yet. Oh. You can't have this either. But what you can have is some archery stuff from Josh's archery dealership. It's podiumarcher.com. Around the holidays, you want to get yourself some archery stuff. Check it out. Discount code TIMC will help you save some money and support what we do. And if you could, leave us a review, share it with a friend, subscribe wherever you are listening. That stuff helps us. The other day, our podcast shut down for a day. It's totally weird, strange, and random. And at that point, I realized, like, all we really had to lean on was how big the pod was. So if you could leave us a review, that stuff helps us. We don't ever want to get shut down. And I think it was just a technical error, but it was still kind of scary in the moment. Anyway, let's get back to the podcast and have a great holiday season. What I was saying, if it's 1910 and I make something and you knock it off, that sucks because we're kind of next to each other and it sucks. At the end of the day, the better product, the better marketing will eventually shake its way out, but it does kind of suck, and I can see the argument for a patent. But in 2020, if I make something and then you knock it off, that sucks. But no matter what, it's going to get knocked off somewhere if it's not in the U.S.
Yeah, the reality of it is it's getting knocked off outside of the U.S. and then getting shipped into the U.S.
And
from
then
outside of the U.S.
yeah.
So what's the point?
Yeah.
All you're doing is stopping an American person from advancing that product or taking that idea and growing with it.
Yeah.
And honestly, if you're first to market and best to market, you're going to win anyway. It's not going to matter.
And if you're the best at what you do, patents are kind of protecting the second and third tier, Because
Yes.
if you're the best, you're going to continue to be the best. There's a reason you're the best. You have the best ideas or the best design or whatever. And that's going to grow with you.
But let's take the deadlock technology as a good example.
Yeah.
Right, Bowtech's technology, which if you were deliberately segueing into this from Bowtech, that's clever.
No, I'm not.
I didn't think you were, but
No.
I ended up there since we got one sitting over there. But that has managed to be its own system for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's 4 years or 5 years, whenever the Reckoning came out, when they first came out with that product, and they've managed to keep that as something that no one's been able to touch for at least 5 years. Elite's system works completely differently, and it doesn't seem to move as much. It's like more of a fine tuning thing.
Yeah, it's like a fine tuning.
It's not an everything tuning thing. And in fact, Matthews is the first one I've seen come out with something that authentically is as broad. Like it moves as much, it adjusts as much, it performs the same task whilst not being the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
But if you took that technology and made it to where they couldn't restrict other people from using it, right? Anybody could use it. That'd be on everybody's boat within a year or two. If that had any sense, like you could look at it and go, "Fuck, that's smart." Like that. Why didn't we think of that? Because this is not a complicated task, right? Because every bow system in general today, trying to tune their bow is just simply trying to move their cam left to right. That's what they're trying to do. Now, how they go about that is different depending on each brand and their own techniques, right? But that's what they're trying to do. And by moving the cam left and right, you're changing the angle the cam sits at draw. That's all they're doing, right? Well, BoTech system was logical, sensible, simple, and bomb-proof. Like we do not see failures in it.
Yeah.
And I do like what Matthews did to their system to make it work in a similar fashion, but it's also not tested over in the public. I guarantee you they tested the ass out of it. Like Matthews traditionally tests stuff for a long time. They're usually, out of everybody that I know, they're probably at least 5 years ahead in like development. Like whatever you're seeing now, they probably made 5+ years ago.
Yeah.
And then now it's just out, right? And then they're tweak it along the way and test it along the way. But I know the rubber and their limbs, they tested that for 10 years before they released that. I mean, that's a long time to ride a product idea out, wondering if someone else is going to think of the idea and launch it. But at the same time, they can also put a patent on it early, which they have like 3 in-house attorneys. That's all they do.
How much better off across would the industry have been if more people could have used that technology sooner, or something similar?
Well, it depends. I mean, the idea of creating a product or a patent or an idea that's yours in the bow industry that drastically makes your bow more appealing is huge, right? Because then you're going to own a percentage of it for a while. But you look at what people are buying a Matthews for in general, right? They're typically buying, it's arguable, but they're typically buying a lighter weight, quieter bow.
Modern looking.
But in general, but what they're buying a Matthews for before this year wasn't something you could patent, right? They just spent the money to get the equipment to build something in a manner that would make it superior for strength versus weight over somebody else's product, right? Without excessive high cost, right? And that's really the clever play there. They've managed to keep their cost or their sell price more reasonable than some of the others. I'm not going to say their price is reasonable because that $1,300 or $1,400 is not reasonable for a bow, but it is like the going rate anymore, right? And theirs is less than several other major brands. And it's like, but they're offering lighter weight, right? And in all the stuff I tested, it was quieter, like noticeably quieter. And there's no lie to that. whilst not raising the price, like, or raising it very little from the year to year. So, but yeah, I wish that everybody could use everybody's technology and it would be fine and dandy and it wouldn't matter, but there'd be a whole bunch of people that are making a lot of money off of licensing the use of patents that would lose all their money. So it's tough, man. Like, if patents were international, it'd be one thing, but they tend to only affect your country because people just knock it off in another country.
Right, and we're kind of lucky at this point because archery is largely contained by the U.S. But what happens if someone major starts ripping everything off, and offering it for 3/4 of the price? Like, it could happen like a lot of other industries that get shook up. Where
they can't really offer it at 3/4 of the price, like, not use the same quality of materials, right? You can make it cheaper. You can make like really crappy aluminum and cheap plastics and things of that nature in like a sight, for example. You could knock off a sight and be less. But even if you look at like Celinda or whatever, that Chinese bow knockoff company, right? Mm-hmm. They're still trying to sell that bow for $800, $900, $1,000. It's not like, and they're competing against a $1,300 bow, right? So they're not $300 or $400.
3/4 the price.
No. It's 3/4. I thought you said like a quarter.
Yeah, 3/4 the price.
Yeah, 3/4 of the price I could see, but honestly, you have to ask yourself in that scenario: is a quarter of the price difference worth zero support, no warranty, definitely lower quality materials in it? Because that's how Chinese stuff works. They figure out how to make it as cheap as possible in general, right? So whatever plastic they're using is going to be the cheapest plastic they can get away with. Whatever metal they're using is going to be the cheapest quality metal you can get away with. Those things of that nature. There's probably going to be greater tolerances in the product, so there's less rejects, things like that. That's there's a reason that they can make it cheaper is because they're making it in a manner in which it's poorer quality. So if it's only at 25%, I don't think it should matter at that point. I wouldn't take the cheaper one. I know some people will feel like it's worth it. Now, if it's half the price or a quarter of the price, kind of like some of the lighted knocks that you can get on there, I think they're like $20 for like 5 or 6 or some ridiculous thing. Mm-hmm. Okay, I get it. I understand why you're gravitating that way because, we're paying 30 or 35 for 3. If I can get like a half a dozen for 20, it's like these are consumable, these are disposable, these are things that wear out and break. But once again, what are they making it with? What's the quality of the plastic? How often are they breaking? How many failures do you have? And does that failure happen in the moment of truth, in the point where it really matters? And that's something to consider.
And as we move into the next generation of America, how much of the tariff is going to be? How much of the tariff of destiny is going to be slammed
the tariff
down?
of destiny. I'm excited, man. I'm so excited.
Yeah.
It still doesn't feel real.
Yeah.
Like I did not think this was going to work out.
And
it's, granted, we still don't know what's going to really happen, right? I know there's one show that I listen to, which I'm just going to say, don't be a host, share the show. I don't know if you watch that or not.
No.
But,
that's the name of the show?
No.
Oh.
That's what you're supposed to tell people. It's Real AF, Andy Frisella.
Okay. I've heard a few people who like it.
That's this dude. It's really good, but he's been mostly right the whole way of what he thinks is going to happen. And he thinks they're going to off Trump before he makes it into office so they can say they had a free and fair election and everybody agreed with it, but they can take over and push back into something a different way.
Well, I do worry I want him to get in office. I want him to be safe. Mm-hmm. I don't know. He feels larger than life at this point. Yeah. I'm an optimist.
I agree. Yeah. I agree. I was simply pointing out.
It was crazy though. I saw him
get in there.
I saw him in a vlog with Elon. His granddaughter, I believe, his name is Kai Trump, and she's taken on YouTube. She's like started YouTube a long time ago. She's actually started in the golf space.
Yeah, she was gonna say she's a golfer.
Yeah, but now she's just making like vlogs around Trump, and one of them was they watched this SpaceX thing go up with Elon. So you have Elon standing next to Trump in real life, like no camera editing, no bullshit. Trump looks so orange in real life.
He's the Oompa Loompa.
What? That's got to be a fake tan, right?
No, he's a spray tan guy. Yeah, if you look around his eyes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not orange.
Why is he so spray tanny?
I don't know. It's just his style, man.
What a weird thing. Like, it looked unnatural.
People do weird stuff.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm glad he's got all of his faculties up top. That's what's most important.
Yes, it's honestly, it's really impressive for his age and whatnot. I know I've heard Rogan say it a dozen times or whatnot. He's the only president in like the last 50 years that didn't look like he aged when he was president.
Well,
it was like he was fine, where everyone else looks like they're on the brink of death when they get out.
He's the
like
only.
Obama looked like he lost 30 years in 8 years.
Yeah.
Like it was massive.
Kamala looks like she lost 30 years during running.
Yeah. Did you see the video she put out where
yeah.
she just looks hammered?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
It's like someone protect that poor woman. Oh, she's having a hard go of it.
Yeah. Well, let's bust out.
That's enough politicking.
Let's bust out that bow.
You starting with the BoTech?
Talk to me. Let's start off
So
with
this
whatever
right
you want to
here-
start off with.
This is the Proven 34 with the small cam on it. This is the bow I reviewed, built, and shot a deer with in Texas. Was hoping to shoot like 10 deer with it in Texas, but the hunt didn't quite
And
go.
that's your bow right there.
Yeah, this is the only one we got.
Yeah.
Like this was the only one we got. We just got the long draw version and another one of these the other day.
Yeah, those cams look kind of small, actually.
Yeah, well, this is the performance cam for 30 inches and under. So this goes to 30, and it was fast. Like this bow was 333 or 334 in my test. Felt great. Tunability, I was jacked. I was like, this bow's awesome. I like it. I'm going to take it hunting. Built it, threw it together. I haven't put out my build video yet. Gun to in the next day or two. It's edited. I just haven't put it out. So that'll be before this comes out. But and the scuttlebutt and the hot goss on this is this little freaking cutout in the side of the riser that looks like a horrific afterthought, and they're just getting destroyed in the comments
really?
on it. Well, I mean, James has had one of these for a month or so, and then I think I got this a week or two before it came out, maybe 3. So I've had it for a while, and both call each other and talk about the same thing, going, dude, they're going to get destroyed. This just looks... The dovetail doesn't even fit it. Like it's sticking out. Like when you bolt it on, it literally looks like this weird little afterthought. And I get what they were trying to do. They're like, well, we're taking the weight and bolting it as far this way as you can, so it'll make it feel like it's more in the center. And I get that, but man, it just doesn't. It looks like it doesn't fit at all. It's weird. But this is the best performance I've gotten out of a bow with these specs from them ever. And it feels good. Like it's dead. It's just heavy is the only thing. Right. It was.
And did you shoot it mostly in performance or smooth?
I always shoot them in performance.
Okay.
When any bow, I'm going to have it in the more aggressive setting. And if I can't handle it, I'll back the weight down.
Does it feel better or worse than the SR did?
Oh, it's way easier to pull than the SR.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, the SR was rough. But this is noticeable. Like you can feel the hump.
Yeah.
It's like Fergie. It's got the humps.
Yeah.
Right. But
in my history of shooting bows, paying attention, the SR has, in my opinion, the harshest draw cycle I felt.
You didn't try the APA.
No, I did not try the APA.
Yeah, it was so rough. But I agree. The SR is the closest thing I've ever felt to it.
Yeah.
It was super aggressive. And it goes to show you, like you go back and look at everything I tested, that bow was 340.
Yeah.
Right. The APA was actually faster than it. I couldn't even keep it back. It kept wanting to go forward so bad. But the SR was 340, and nothing got close to that this year. The Hoyt was, I think, 37. If I remember right, the RX-9 I shot 337. But it is amazing. The majority of the bows that came out this year are between 332 and 337.
Yeah, the speed
like across the board.
Relatively tight.
Like there's not one that's jumping ahead. They're within 5 feet for the most part. The primes I just tested were a little shy of that, but they also feel really good. Right, the cycle's not bad at all. So, but yeah, this bow really tickled my fancy, and then I got a LiftX 33, and was like, well, God, I got to try this now because it did the things that this bow did. Other than this has timing in it. So they added time lock to it. They added grip lock to it. Still using the traditional wheeling adjustment system, the deadlock, on basically an SS34 with a slightly smaller cam to get you a little bit more efficiency. But you can also buy it with a bigger cam and get that 33 and a half inch draw length, if I remember right. But here you go. But yeah, I couldn't handle that weird little sight bracket thing, so I just put a regular black gold on it.
Yeah, just a regular bracket. I was thinking about this, and I've known you for a while now, and you always say, like, I went to do this event. I set up my bow 5 days prior. Now, the first couple times I heard that, I could believe that story, but now you're a repeat offender.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I don't think you can help yourself.
I can't help it.
I don't think you can help yourself.
I want to play the new one. You're doing. I want to play.
Do I have 24 hours? Plenty of time. Let me get
Well,
going.
that's the problem with it
Does it feel a little bit like a challenge?
I rarely, maybe it rarely bites me anymore.
Yeah.
Like every once in a while, it'll bite me to throw something together with 24 to go. But that bow was built in a day and a half before I left, and the lift 33X that I got, I want to say I built it just a couple of days before I went hunting with it. Like, and I sighted it in and went hunting. Like, so, but I guess my confidence in being able to tune the bow relatively easily and not run into problems like going, why is this not working right? That doesn't really happen anymore, or it's rare. And I've always got an extra bow. Like I've always got something that was built that I know works good in the backdrop. So it's like, hey, if it doesn't work out, I'll just grab that and go. So there's not like the same risk that the average person would have, because if the average person would do that, I imagine they're probably disassembling their other bow that they had to put their parts on
That's
it,
true.
or they're selling their old bow so they won't have it for a backup. So when you have a good, reliable backup bow, it's not scary. Like I used to say that I shouldn't do this, but now it's like, oh, screw it. I do it all the time. What's the difference?
How good is the time lock feature? Like how far is your timing out that it can move it? Because I've heard it's for more micro timing.
It is for micro.
Yeah.
It is for micro, and it's something that small of an adjustment should exist on every bow. Because anymore, these cams are getting so aggressive, it's really hard to time a bow. Like it's easy to get it close. It's easy to get it to where the top's touching before the bottom, just barely. But making them touch at exactly the same time, no matter what, is difficult, especially on the Matthews. And that's where I think Darton's crushed it. Which it's weird to say that phrase because it's Darton, but because they're a smaller company and kind of coming back, right? But they've got wheeling adjustment that's easy and timing that's easy.
Well, and
then you can do it on that too, but it's not as easy to adjust as theirs. Like Darton's, you can just grab it, twist it, and boom, you're done.
One thing that gives me more confidence in Darton, which I didn't understand, was historically Darton has had really good technology that they've just licensed out.
Right. Yeah, they're usually more than willing to license their tech to other companies, which would be awesome because if they can license that timing to other people. Now, traditionally, Matthews doesn't license.
Yeah.
Matthews will find a way around it. And they want it to be Matt's original idea or something like that.
Oh, one sidebar, the timing thing. So I ran into a problem with my Supra. It wouldn't time perfectly, like you mentioned. And we just couldn't get it there with a because you can only go half turns, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
We couldn't get it there. So Justin threaded through the cable a little
piece
chunk
of loop material.
Yeah, with what looks like something you'd move a peep twist with.
Yep.
And that was his little backhanded way to get it done.
Yeah.
But what a workaround to time your bow.
Yeah, sure.
You know what I mean? Like that's some Jedi level stuff.
Well, that's created from Dan McCarthy's product. Like Dan McCarthy makes a product that does that. That's different sizes of beads that you put in there. It's just an easy way to do that with something else, right? And that's been around for a little while, that usage. But it's something that's commonplace enough anymore that every bow manufacturer should be able to figure out a way around it.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be that complicated. And like I'm just sitting here looking at that, I thought of a way to do it that's different than the way they're doing it. It can't be that hard, right? I mean, somebody's got to integrate those things. And once again, no different than BoTech's timing system that took a long time for people to start really figuring out how to get around it. When that came out like 5 years ago, and now there's one manufacturer or two manufacturers that haven't addressed an easier way to move your cam left to right, right? That are just using a spacer, right? And a spacer that you have to extract the axle to remove. Outside of Hoyt, I'm trying to think who's still just using spacers for left to right, cam position. I don't know.
PSE?
No, they got a pop out. So they're using a system like Prime's, and they're actually licensing it from Prime, where it's like an E-clip. So you don't have to...
It's not technically a spacer?
It's a spacer, but it's a removable spacer without taking the axle out. So the hard part, if you've ever actually really fucked with it, is taking the axle out. If you take the axle out, it's hard to get it back in, right? The right way to do it is to disassemble your strings and take all the load off of the bow when you do it, which is an absolute pain in the ass. Nobody wants to do that because now I got to try to keep these things from untwisting, keep my timing right, hook them all back on correctly, make sure they're in their cam grooves before I go to pull them back. It's just a lot of risk, right? Whereas if you pull the axle out, the limbs are going to shift a little bit in the press, but you should be able to get it back in without dropping everything. But almost every time when you do it, you lose a spacer falls on the ground, you're chasing it around, E-clip goes flying, something, right? Something that has made that task a lot harder than it should be. And Prime, hats off to Prime, they were the first ones that came up with like, looks like a beefy E-clip, like it's wider and thicker, and it pops over the axle. And then their system screws in from either side and holds it in place. So they back the axle up, put it back together, lock it back in, boom, off you go. Now, that still doesn't give you the ability to finitely move it left to right. You're still running down to like 20 thousandths or 30 thousandths. I'm not sure what their spacers were. They told me, but I can't remember the exact number. But it's still moving at like 20 thou at a time or 30 thou at a time. Whereas there's instances where if you could move it 5 thou, it'd be ideal.
Well, you like this bow, right?
Yeah, I thought it was a great bow. It's just heavy.
For you.
It's just heavy.
I think, it's only been out for a little while, but I think the general consensus from the market or the people observing are going to be like, it's not going to blow that many dicks off because it's technology they've had around for a while.
Yeah, they're
kind of like being penalized by their own innovation in a way.
They bought a year is all they did.
Yeah.
So like when they came out with their bows last year, they added all that technology to older models and called them something different. Yeah, they cut them different. Yeah, blah, 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 whatever. It was the same specs, basically. It was the same, probably the same forgings of risers. Like they didn't reforge a riser or something different. And this is an SS34 remake. Yeah. Right? So, I mean, and that's the way a lot of bow manufacturers have done their business. And I mean, like, how do you gripe? Like you look at what Matthews did this year in their lift versus Lift X. They added one feature. Same bow, identical. Like didn't even try to remachine anything. It's like, oh, I take that back. They remachined the thumb position on your riser
and strengthened the limbs, supposedly.
I'm just talking about like your riser portion, right? Like what did they do there? So, but yeah, I mean, it's you can't expect like leaps and bounds every year. There's only so much that can be done, especially when you're dealing with patents, which is where this conversation started. If you can patent something, then somebody else can't use that technology, and you got to figure out a way to get around it and still make the bow do what it did.
Do you remember the brace height on this thing?
6.5 or 6 1/4.
Okay.
Something around there.
And the reflex?
A little under an inch.
Yeah.
Yeah. Bowtech's always low on their brace.
Yeah.
On their reflex.
Right on. Well, who's this bow for? Like, who are the people that want to consider this thing?
That's a Western bow hunter's bow. That doesn't mind a heavy bow, right? If you want a heavy bow or you aren't turned off by a heavy bow and you're a Western bow hunter, that is an immensely great bow. It's a good spec. It's very low reflex. It's very fast for what it is. Should be really accurate. And I shot it well. I thought it did a really good job. It was a little tack driver. There's just, I got no gripes other than weight. Like if that bow weighed 4 1/4, this would be a really good argument for bow of the year.
What if you're an Eastern guy with a 31-inch draw length? Do you still go with the shorter A to A bow?
They make that bow in 2 different cam sizes. It's the same A to A.
Yeah, but I'm saying, you said like it's a Western guy's bow that doesn't mind a longer bow. I'm saying if you're a tree stand hunter in the East, but you have a long draw length, you personally, would you go with a shorter bow to hunt out of a tree stand?
You wouldn't be able to if you had a longer draw length. It depends on what you're referring to as a longer draw length.
It's 31 inches.
Okay, so there isn't a short bow with the exception of like an SS. There isn't a bow under 32 that you can use. They're all going to be longer than 32 because the draw length won't go that long. So, and that's that across the board too. Like once again,
what does Matthews peak out at for draw length?
Well, which bow? The 33?
The 29.5.
30.
Okay.
Yeah, like all your shorter axle to axle bows stop at 30.
So those 31-inch guys, they're a little more limited in their selection.
They are. Yeah. If you're over 30 and a half limits you because they almost all stop at 30, which I'm 30 and a half. Right? So I end up with longer bows or I force myself to shoot my bow a little short, which is not ideal. Right? But that's like, there's one thing that I saw across the board, which once again, it's like they know what the industry's asking for anymore, I think. Because you saw Hoyt come out with same bow, longer draw length, longer cam, right? And same bow, shorter cam. They did both of those things this year. BoTech, same bow, shorter cam, longer cam. It's the only difference. You get a different cam on there to give you better performance or make you a longer draw length bow. Matthews, Lift X 33, same bow, longer cam, and the cam's huge. It's like bigger than my hand if you lay it flat. It's jumbo.
It's massive.
Yeah, it's massive for sure. And let's see, who else? I swear somebody else did that too. Last year, Elite did that. Like they made the Ethos and the Kairos.
Yep.
And that was a longer cam, shorter cam, same bow, right?
So
there was a period of time where they didn't do that, and Matthew's making a shorter overall bow, still using the same cam, right? So they're integrating the same parts to create different variables, right? Like what Matthews did from a manufacturing standpoint was genius. Like they're only making their entire hunting line, right? They make a bow for a lady, a short draw length guy, mid-size and longer guy, and then extreme draw length guy, and they're making that on 3 risers, 2 limbs, 2 cams, all the same. Like manufacturing, it's brilliant. Like it's cost effective, right? And that's part of why, personally, I think when you look at everybody else raising their costs X, they raised their costs Y. They didn't raise it as much because they figured out how to make you the product more efficiently, so it doesn't cost as much. So they're not throwing it away in not being ingenuitive with it.
Yeah. Well, it's an interesting bow. I can see why a person would want to use it for sure.
I want to see that bow out of that material they made the Honor out of. Then you got a home run. Like, because now and like I said, that's the issue. It's heavy, right? And a guy might want a heavy bow, and that's fine. But in general, you're competing with a 4 1/4 market for a bow that size, and that bow's like almost 5 pounds.
Yeah.
If I remember right, it's heavy, but it feels great.
Yeah.
It's very dusty. That's Texas dust.
Well, that's good. We got some firsthand use out of you. That's a real review. You got to zip it through an animal. Speaking of, you zipped it through an animal.
Yeah.
Just one animal?
Yeah, just one.
And what was it? Your classic arrow, 400 grains?
I actually had a hunt long range. And they're the new Victories.
Oh, yep.
Yeah, and a Mega Meat 100 grain. Oh, I had not ever shot a Mega Meat.
And what'd that come out to, your setup?
Low 4s. It was like right at 400.
Okay.
Somewhere around there. And it was a 15-yard shot. Like it was close.
Passed through?
No.
No?
I hit the offside socket.
Okay.
Like just squared it.
Yeah.
So, and you're probably not going through that with a big old mechanical broadhead, but it put a big hole in the entrance, and I watched him fall.
How'd the trail? The trail?
It was I shot the deer, and I did not get out of the blind until I couldn't see. And I watched him fall, so I didn't walk it.
Okay.
So I don't know. But it didn't. The position of where it was, like I'm ground level with him, right? So it's not like this. It's not up. So the hole was just like right through the middle. Just like you showed, it was probably an inch to the right, maybe at most of where it was, and that might have been him moving a little bit when I shot him. But the hole wasn't very high, and I'd never seen a whitetail run so fast. It ran like an antelope.
Oh, they can run really fast.
Oh man, it covered ground. But I think it was 4 seconds.
Yeah.
Maybe 5 from when I shot him, and he jumped over a fence, looped around to try to go back the way he was going, and I watched him skid to a stop.
Well, and that's why when someone says, "Oh, he only went 30 yards," that doesn't mean anything different to me than the deer went 150 yards. Because if they're on a death sprint, they can make it 30 or 150.
Maybe it's rare in my instance when an animal's shot like exceptionally lethally that it makes it more than 100 yards, unless it's running straight down a hill.
Yeah.
Like if you take the hill out of it, like if it's side hill, flat ground, something like that, a double lung shot animal shouldn't make it more than 100 yards.
Yeah.
Unless, now I have seen instances where a guy makes a great shot and it doesn't run and it walks really slow. Because it's almost like that startling situation that happened makes them run into a full sprint, which pushes all their blood out of their body so fast that they just die.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
We're kind of saying the same thing there.
I think we are. I think we are. We're just saying it a different way.
Yeah. Or you're like Dan Staten and shoots a bear in Alaska, and it goes up the hill 30 yards, and then it comes down the hill to 6 yards. So when you tell that story, you said he only went 6 yards, which is true, right?
It's a true story.
You hear that
true
stuff,
story.
and it's real.
It's a true
I was
story.
there.
It does happen.
Okay, let's move on. We got another bow, and maybe
Do you want the one that looks like your underwear, or the one that looks uniquely new?
The one that looks uniquely new. Yeah, we'll save my power thong for the next one.
Comment down below on what you think of this bow.
Perhaps the most unique. I shouldn't say perhaps the most unique looking bow of 2025.
This is. I will give credit where credit is due. This is 100% different than anything I've ever seen.
I like to see it. I like to see someone taking a shot at something original.
You're being innovative. You're doing something different and taking a swing, and I'm happy to see it, and I'm proud to see it.
Yeah.
And it's good to see it from not a main flagship company, which is not to say Prime's not a flagship company, but they're not the biggest company. So to jump out there and make something different, like this is a risk. right? This is a big risk. And some people will glance at this and say all kinds of negative things. Look a little more closely before you judge, right? Because it does look different. They had a really valid point in this, and I'll let you fondle it since you really haven't while I'm talking.
Yeah.
So here's how Prime went about it. They went, okay, what's the problem with a carbon bow? So, well, a carbon bow traditionally still has metal in it because you can't screw anything to it without metal being in it. And you can't attach the limb pocket to it without metal being in it for the most part. Right? There has to be metal inset in it somewhere to function. And these carbon bows are like a 34-inch axle-to-axle carbon bow. I think the lightest one's 4.1 pounds. Now, there used to be bows that were sub 4 pounds in the 34-inch axle-to-axle range, but they were mostly limb. They weren't riser, right? The riser wasn't this long expanded piece of rigidity, which your riser is where the stability is derived in a bow, right? So if you have a little short riser, you're likely to be more torquey, more squirrely, harder to get level on shot, right? So you want a longer riser anymore. I think that's widely accepted as a positive thing across the brand. There might be a company or two that argues that, but 95% of them say, hey, longer riser, more stable.
Which is why most bows in Vegas are 40 inches.
Yeah, if it wasn't true, target bows wouldn't be longer.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a no-brainer. So, but they looked at it from the standpoint of, okay, why are we trying to get all the metal out other than a tiny little bit? What if we make it sensible? What if our limb attachment system's still all aluminum and our sight and rest attachment system and cable guard attachment system and string stop attachment systems, all aluminum, because those are the things you have to screw into and machine, and then everything else in between can be carbon. And that's what they did. And they supposedly have a patent coming out on the attachment system, how they managed to get those carbon tubes to attach to the aluminum in I think it was 8,000 or 9,000 pounds of braking strength system before it'll fail. So it's incredibly rigid. I can say it didn't feel like there was any less or more vibration than its aluminum counterpart, which you can get that exact same bow, everything the same in an aluminum bow, right? Which is neat. And I'm calling this a hybrid bow. Okay, I'm not calling it a carbon bow. I'm not calling it an aluminum bow.
Yeah, it's a hybrid bow.
I think it's a hybrid. And if you compare it, like the price structure that it's at, I think is priced right for what it is. Personally, I think if you're trying to get down to that weight, right, a lighter weight, which it's 4.1, if I remember right,
Yeah, it feels
on a 34.
light.
It is. It's 4.1 on a 34.
And Matthews is what, in a 33?
Well, Matthews is all aluminum, but they're 426. So that's lighter than Matthews.
Okay.
Now, granted, I am weighing the Matthews with its dampener, and I had to take those limb dampeners off to get that
These
weight.
things?
Yes.
These chunkies?
I had to take those off
Yeah.
to get that weight. Whereas I never bothered weighing the Matthews lighter or without the dampener in it because it was already 4.2 pounds with the dampener installed. So maybe it's the same weight, realistically. But outside of that, like it's lighter than a Hoyt. It's lighter than a BoTech carbon bow. I think it's lighter than the Elite carbon bow. I'd have to go back and check, but it is longer anyway, so you can't really compare that. And it's the same weight as a PSE, Mach 33, right? But it's $1,595 as opposed to $2,000 or $21. And its aluminum counterpart is $1,199 or $1,195, right? So you're paying $400 more to lose 0.3 of a pound and have something that looks really unique. I was pleased with it overall. They also added a speed mod this year, so they got speeds that were closer to what the published was, right? Which the published was 334, and I shot that bow at 324, and I shot the aluminum counterpart at 327 with their speed mod, which their speed mod does not feel hard to pull. It is not aggressive. There are multiple bows that I would put in a category of pull harder than that bow, even with the hardest mod that they have on there. But Prime's always been based off of trying to make something that is the nicest feeling drawing thing. And when you do that, your bow's going to end up slower. There's no way around that. But if you go off the aluminum one, they're 6 feet slower, 7 feet slower, which isn't horrific, but most of the bows are in that 5-foot range now. Now, I'm not including random bows or offshoot bows. I'm just talking about main flagship bows here. So, but it's a unique system, and I'll be real interested to see how well it's perceived. That's the biggest thing is, are people going to go, this looks like a cheapy way to do it? Or are people going to go, wow, that was actually really smart?
Is the tuning system shim-based?
Yes, but it's pop in and out, just like the PSE one.
Okay.
They invented that, and PSE licenses that technology from them.
Right on.
So they pay them a licensing royalty to use theirs. Now, that PSE's is plastic, and theirs is metal. And theirs requires a tool to remove it, just like PSE's.
And this doesn't have the yoke at the bottom, like a lot of the bows are going to.
No, it doesn't.
What's the benefit of having that yoke on the bottom?
I think lateral transfer is better, so I think the cam doesn't lean as much left to right.
Okay.
And that's the premise of it. But if you follow Prime's cable system, it actually doesn't follow a straight line. It tracks inward and outward. And they're trying to eliminate lateral lean with that. So, I mean, I'm impressed that somebody came to market with that. It's just whether it's superior or not.
Yeah.
I think it is. Honestly, as long as assuming that it stays together, right? Which they have, like I said, they spent 3 or 4 years figuring out how to get those things to stay together correctly, and then the process in which they use to do that, they patented.
Well, I can see a world in which other parts than aluminum were used in the riser, whether that's carbon or whatever, to shave weight.
Sure.
You know, yeah, I can totally see that. Now, just at eye glance, one thing I would have loved to have seen was if you're going to throw some carbon in there, maybe wrap the grip in carbon.
Well, so the whole point of their grip is it feels the same in that regard because it's got that aerogel underneath it, so you can't feel the cold through it.
Okay.
So that's how the grip kind of looks funny. Mm-hmm. Well, that's by design. That's on there purposely so you can't feel your cold riser underneath your hand.
So that would be interesting to go outside on a cool day and see how the grip feels compared to carbon.
It does work.
Really?
Like, yeah,
Oh,
that
interesting.
bow's not cold.
So you can vouch for it.
Let your hand hold it for a second, and it warms right up.
You can give it the MFJJ stamp, huh?
Yeah, it does. It does
right
what they're
on.
trying to do. I'm not a big fan of feeling all the rubber and stuff under there, but it is relatively square. So I imagine a guy could shoot it relatively well. I wouldn't throw it out. I think it's usable. I think it's relatively well usable. I think it's another way to look at the common problems and the complaints that people have and how to resolve them. And I just love seeing different solutions to it, which is cool. Which is what's good about patents, right? Because then it forces you to come up with a different solution. Well, we can't copy that. So what are we going to do here? How are we going to make this do that? And then you get greater ingenuity. So, and that might have something to do with why it seems like China's always knocking off things that we make, because they just copy it. Right, because they can. If
They're
they
not
couldn't,
the ideator.
If they couldn't, they'd be forced to spend time innovating.
Yep.
And then they might get really good at innovation and creating their own stuff that isn't knocking off somebody else's technology or idea. So there's benefit to that, and I think that the patent system is why we're so innovative, because it forces us as engineers and designers and product innovators, right, to come out with a different thing instead of, well, I can just copy that guy's thing because that worked. Well, there's a loss to that because you're not spending time trying to figure out how to get around it or do something different, and might even stumble onto something that's way better because it forced you to look outside of the box. So I'm back on patents.
I was going to say, did you just start the podcast?
I just talked myself right back into it. Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. Here's what I think should happen.
Yeah.
Being fair, okay? I think that you should be able to issue patents, but you have to have a reasonable licensing fee. You can't just say nobody can make this but me. So you have built into your patent a nominal fee that anyone can license your patent for. So people that can't figure out a better way can still use it, but you're making money on it. And then people that want to figure out a better way, like i.e. the Matthews of the world, because they typically won't license other people's patents, will find a way around it. But it doesn't stifle the innovation. I think that's the best hybrid of everything. Like, I think you should be able to get issued patents, and I think anyone should be able to license that patent from you for a reasonable amount of money.
That's a fair middle ground.
Yeah.
What do we think? Well, what do you think about the general aesthetic of the bow? How it looks? It definitely looks futuristic.
Yeah, it's different. I hate to.
Does it fancy or tickle?
I think the fact that it looks different is exciting to me, right? Because it definitely looks different. And I can really see the average person taking one glance at it and going, that looks cheap. I can see that really quick. And that's what worries me. Because there's no way that was cheap to make. I get where they could see it that way, but I don't buy that for a second.
My head wouldn't go there. I think there's also a person who's going to look at it and say that's futuristic. That looks
Well, I've had one or two people tell me it looks cheap already.
really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but I don't think it looks futuristic. I think it looks like a different way to make what was being made, authentically and innovatively different.
Yeah. Yeah. This is an interesting one because I don't really have a prediction for how it's going to do. I don't really have a prediction. Usually I have a pretty good idea of what people might like to see or what might be cool, what might be interesting. I can't really say, is this going to help them grab market share?
So here's where
Is it not going to be interesting?
Here's where I land on that.
Yeah.
And I would have loved to have seen this. I don't know how much more expensive that is to make than what they were already making. Realistically.
Yeah.
Like when you think about it, right? You've got much smaller pieces of aluminum, which lowers your cost, right? So I don't know how much it costs to have carbon and bond those together. That might be a super expensive process. Okay. So don't look at it from me saying this shouldn't be this expensive, but I would have loved to have seen that bow come out at a conventional aluminum bow's price. If that was feasible. Because if it would, I think it would crush. And I really do, because it's different, it's unique, it's lighter, and it's not drastically more expensive. And it's still not. I mean, depending on who you're comparing it to.
Yeah. What's Hoyt's aluminum bow now? 1550, I thought.
A lot. Like too much. Like way
Yeah.
too much. Yeah, theirs is really high. And they went to it's way more for a camo bow over a solid colored bow.
Well, speaking of camo, let's bust out that little Sex Panther 5000.
But
over
yeah,
here.
I'm simply comparing prime to prime, right? This bow's
Prime to prime.
$1,200. That's $1,600. So you're paying $400 more
Now,
for that.
this does have Picatinny on the front, but it's only got the one Picatinny, right? Just the one.
That one's machined in. That one's bolted on.
Okay.
And then they both have rear mount.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do we think about this thing? This is the aluminum version in a shorter model.
That is the RVX Plus. So it's very similar to last year's RVX. Very little change, but a little bit of change. But not a price increase either, right? So, and you can, like I said, you can get a speed mod for them now. So you can get a little more, like 7 more foot a second out of the exact same bow. So, and there are a decent amount of people that like the feel of that bow. And that felt good. It was right in the middle of my decibel testing. I haven't shot that 32 yet. We've done the 34 in this. That's as soon as we're done filming this, we're going to do that one. And that bow, I've gotten a range of like 78 to 85 on the decibel meter this year since I figured out what was causing it to do odd things.
It's pretty wide range.
It is from when you actually understand what decibels mean.
Yeah.
Right. And it was right in the middle. It was 82. And that's the other thing that just blows my mind. Like Matthews won that. I know, I get why people think I'm a fanboy, but like test anything on it. They win. It's tough.
Well, if you line up
everybody
the
else.
Excel spreadsheets, which is what you said at the beginning, was like on paper, this is hard to beat.
On paper, it's not going to get beat.
Right.
It's not hard to. You can't.
You still, for a person selecting their bow,
It doesn't mean you're going to like
that
it the
doesn't,
best.
and it doesn't mean you're going to shoot it the best necessarily.
Correct.
But from a feature, function, fit, snazzy, put it in an Excel spreadsheet, pump it out your computer equation, it's going to come out as the most innovative.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and it should. Rightfully so. Because they've done a ton.
Yeah.
They really have.
Now, we've already got this question from the mad scientists of the world. Will there be a person who takes the dart and timing thing and puts it on a Matthews bow?
It'll be on one of my bows shortly.
Oh, really?
100%.
See, you're part of
They
that
will
group.
sell it.
You're part of that group of mad scientists.
They will sell it.
engineers,
No,
yeah.
I like it's and the beauty of most cam systems is most cam systems are made that way.
Yeah.
So it'll be very easy to integrate it. And anybody listening, any bow manufacturer listening, with any sense, if my opinion weighs any sway with you, which it probably doesn't, but let's say it does, go license that from them. Period. Like, period.
Yeah.
That is well worth it. It's a great idea. It's very simple, and it's dumb proof. Like any Tom, Dick, or Harry can set it in the field. It's easy to do. Super simple. And Darton traditionally has been more than willing to license their ideas, so I don't know why all of a sudden they wouldn't. I'd jump on that in a heartbeat. Like that would be on my next year's bows across the board. If I was a bow manufacturer, if I was Matthews or I was Hoyt, I would put that on my bow next year, guaranteed. Because you don't have to change the bow. You just got to measure the difference from what your existing yoke system sucks up versus that one, and get your cable length different. And I will put that on a Matthews bow for sure, because they are the hardest bow to time. Out of everything I've tried to set, it is absolutely the most difficult, and that would make it super simple.
Well,
but traditionally, Matthews will not license someone else's technology.
Yeah.
So we probably won't see it from them, but
or maybe they make their own
Hoyt
version of it.
licensed from Darton before,
Yeah.
so maybe.
Maybe Matthews makes their own version of it, their workaround. This color, now it's pretty appealing to the eyeball, not so practical for most people in their camouflages. Yeah, you're hunting in Tennessee.
No, you're hunting zebras with that dog.
Yeah, you're hunting the plains and you potentially want to get charged by a lion. You put this on top of your head.
There you go.
But it is pretty cool looking.
You could walk right into a field of zebras with it.
Yeah.
Like, hey, buddy, come on over.
Did
That's a good mix.
Did Prime also launch some other snazzy colors, or is this kind of just one that jumps out?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I hadn't looked.
Yeah.
I'm still waiting my tail end through this and then get as much as I can done.
Well, who do you think this bow's
then-
for? 32 is a nice middle ground.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's for the person. And what do we think about Prime's thing is the grips in the middle, right?
Yes.
Is there validity to that?
That's hard to say.
Yeah.
They believe there is. It's all about balance and movement, right? And they believe putting your hand in the middle of the riser gives you better balance, and less
Symmetry.
movement, symmetry. But you're also pulling a shorter end off the top than the bottom, and that makes knock travel a little more difficult. So that's part of their system, and it's integrated into that. It's unique. Everyone's got their own idea, right? Like Matthews believes if I'm remembering this correctly, God, someone down below will tell me I'm wrong. That's fine. The arrow's in the middle, the handle's below, which is why Matthews always feels top heavy. It's because they design it to where the arrow's leaving the middle of the riser. Prime designs it where your hand's in the middle of the riser, and everybody else is usually halfway between. So if you measured it out and graphed it out, they're like, all right, the arrow's halfway above, the handle's halfway below. So it's just kind of how they do it. And it's their own claim to fame and what their head engineers believe is right. And they believe in that wholeheartedly. Trying to educate the public on how that works or why is a little trickier, right? But you'll notice that as soon as you pull it back, it doesn't feel exactly the same. And you can notice it easily. So, and is somewhere in the middle right? I don't know. I really don't.
Yeah, it's interesting. It kind of comes down to, I think, what's going to help your bow point the best. I like in ideology, I like the idea of the arrow leaving the middle of the string, that in the middle of the bow. That makes the most sense to me. But I'm just a redneck.
Traditionally,
Yeah.
traditionally that means that your bow's going to point worse. Usually, that was traditionally the argument with the older school Matthews. They'd have to raise their knock height up a bunch to try to get the bow to point. Which, ironically, Michael just moved his knock point up like a week ago, and it's like, man, I can't make this thing leave the middle now. Like, wonder why? Because they're built that way. Like your hand's low. And I never measured the target bows to see if the arrow's leaving in the middle on the target bows or if they tweaked that a little bit. Wouldn't shock me if they went away from that a little bit. But their hunting bows traditionally have always been the handles below and the arrows leaving in the middle.
How is your shoulder health and back health doing? Are you going to be able to shoot some arrows this winter, you think? Or
I don't know if I'm going to have any time.
Yeah, that's true. You're going to Tennessee.
I'm going to Tennessee a week a month.
Yeah.
I'm leaving tomorrow morning. I'll be at the
That's a
airport
lot,
at 3 a.m. And I'm down there till Friday, and then I come back, and then I go to Texas. I go to Tucson, and then drive into Mexico with Ray for like 8 days or 9 days or something like that.
You
and
and
then I come
Brandon
back
are going to
here.
be really good friends.
Yeah, my homeboy Brandon. Yeah.
You guys are going to be really good friends.
Yeah, we're gonna make Brandon great again.
I know.
That's the whole point. I had to buy an entire shop just to make Brandon get on YouTube more.
Someone said, why not say, let's go, Brandon? And I said, well, something to that, too. You know what I'm saying?
There is, but that says a negative connotation, and I want to make Brandon great again.
Yeah.
I just thought that was better.
Get an MBA and MBA. You know what I'm saying?
There you go. But yeah, I bet you the next 2 months I'm gone half of the month.
That's true.
And I bet you that kind of continues, as much as I don't want to acknowledge that reality, like between going to attack or something like that.
Yeah.
Now, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to loop in a week in Tennessee and then fly somewhere else and then come back here. But the planning and logistics behind that are an absolute nightmare, because it's like, if I'm going somewhere else, it's probably to shoot something or whatnot. So now I have to make sure I got my bow with me. Now I got to fly with it to multiple different spots, which is what I did when I went to Texas, because I went to Texas, to Tennessee, to back to Spokane. It wasn't horrible, but I had to be well planned and well prepared, which is not my strong suit in life. I'm just not. I try to be, but I'm not good at it.
Yeah.
I'm usually scrambling at the last minute and throwing in crap, and I always forget at least one thing that I really needed. Guaranteed. And I usually figure it out once I've left to where I can't come back. Like close the door to the plane and I go, oh shit, I forgot that. Yeah, that's me. So, but I can tell you till February. Like I don't have anything planned in February other than I'm sure I'll go to Tennessee for a week, but I don't have anything there.
You think that's going to be the kind of the schedule a week at a time?
Yeah, I think for now, until it really gets off the ground and I know everything's working good and they're not really needing me to guide or assist on anything, which the sooner the better, I'm fine with. Like I'm a big advocate in putting people in their place and trust them to do their job. But I still feel if I'm there, I think I can help their traffic flow if I acknowledge that, hey, I'm going to be here for this week. Come on down and see me, that kind of thing.
Come on down.
Trying to give them a little extra boost in the area, create some buzz. So even if I'd probably do that way anyway. But I'd love to get to a point where maybe I just stayed there longer and not as often.
Yeah, because archery shop becomes part of the community, really. So
It is.
And it takes a little while to plant that seed. So I understand that.
I don't know
the
response I got from that video.
I know it was massive. Yeah,
Dude, that's the most comments I've gotten in a video.
Yeah,
I think
that's one really cool thing about the internet.
Yeah,
yeah, and you'll always be able to go back and look at that, which is pretty.
Yeah,
neat.
I wonder what. I actually want to look at it now and see.
Yeah,
where it's at. Hang on.
Yeah, every once in a while the internet will do something really cool, and that's an example of that. Is just a bunch of people who are stoked for that to happen.
What the?
Probably your most common video ever.
They changed this or something. Videos view all. I think it does have my most comments. I was just going to see where it was at. Where is it? Where we go? 44,000 views in 4 days, 558 comments.
Yeah.
I don't have anything that high a comment.
Yeah.
LiftX 33 review got close. That's got 52,000 views in 10 days. Yeah, I don't think anything got that. Although, let's see. Wait. Nope. The RX9 videos at 60,000.
Yeah.
But 170 comments. Like, it was insane.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there were 2 negative comments. And one of them was, this guy's going to be the next Shields and kill every mom and pop. I'm not doing that. Like, I don't know why I would add another store beyond this. Like, you're overlooking the point of this. The point of this was to save money in shipping. But if you're going to put all that money into fulfilling product out of a spot, it's kind of silly to not offer it to the public to come in and buy from there. That's all it is. There's nothing more complicated to it than that.
It's like a distribution center with a storefront.
Yes, that's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
That's all I was trying to do. Do I end up with 4 or 6 of them someday? I doubt it. Like, I really do, because my whole point is I want to give you 2-day shipping. And I think I can do that with where I'm at. And if I don't have to run or operate another business to be able to functionally do that beyond the 2, I'm good.
Yeah, because archery storefronts aren't get-rich-quick schemes.
No.
They're not even get-rich-slow schemes.
No, like for every one archery shop that pops up, 2 go away.
Yeah.
Like they're not profitable. Like they're really hard to make profitable. The only way, in my opinion, long-term you can make them profitable is if you're selling online. Like if you're selling online and offering the pro shop experience, then you've got a really good model. There are some places that have enough populace and enough demand that you can get away with just being a face-to-face business. But even the ones that are like doing really well, they're almost all doing some form of online business. Even like Eugene, Oregon, for example, Wayne,
the Bowtech,
right? Yeah, they really don't sell on a website. However, you can call and order arrows, and they'll ship you arrows with anywhere.
And they sling merchandise to their website,
They
right?
sling a lot of apparel.
Yeah.
Yeah, they sell a lot of apparel. I think they actually use eBay as their store to sell their apparel.
Oh.
And they can ship to Hawaii. They're under certain stipulations in like flagship bows, which is interesting. Like certain ones, because their rep happens to cover Hawaii too. So, but yeah, they are shipping product. The most anti-online people, and they're shipping product, right? So it's the ones that keep growing are doing that. So if you're listening and you want to do a better job, that's your best bet. It's hard, man. The amount of money and time and effort and energy I've spent. I've been trying to make legit online sales happen for over 10 years. Right, I started on things that made sense financially, but it turned into everything Tom, Dick, and Harry can think of. Because I also didn't think I could compete in the space effectively. But once the farther down the road I got, the more I realized I could, and it wouldn't actually be terribly hard because I'd built the infrastructure. But it took years to build the infrastructure. Like it's a large commitment. So I get why people don't do it.
Yeah.
And I'm sure shops have their customers walk in, hey, why don't you sell online? I'd have just bought it from you and blah, 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 right? It's like, well, one, would you have taken the extra time to go find Joe Blow's shop online and then buy it from him as opposed to click 2 buttons on Amazon? You're probably clicking 2 buttons on Amazon if it's about convenience, really. But it takes a long time. And if you don't have a platform behind you screaming it at 3 times a week, I don't know if you get anywhere with it.
Right.
But I encourage people to try because going forward, I don't know how you don't have some kind of a hybrid model that offers both.
Yeah. Yeah, those are wise words. And on that note, fire's out. Bow launch is pretty much over. Get down to your local shops, put them in your hands, and see what you think. You know,
Thank God.
because we're just a couple guys blowing smoke by the fire.
I am tired of it. That's for sure. I wanted to look at how many freaking videos
Speaking
I
of
put out.
blowing smoke, I guess we can't blow smoke in here.
What are you trying to blow smoke?
Cigar. We could do a cigar sometime.
Yeah, my dad used to smoke in here back in the day.
Cigars linger though, man. They do linger.
They do. Not
Yeah.
ideal.
Yeah.
Oh goodness.
So we looking something up?
I can't find it.
Yeah.
I know where it is on the regular computer, but not my phone.
Okay.
So I was just going to say how many videos I actually launched in the last 30 days.
Oh,
It's more
quite
than
a few.
30. It's been more than one a day
Quite a few.
of full length.
You're gonna
videos.
enjoy your hunts.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
you'll have some reports to share with us.
Yeah, I'm sure I'll try to film crap while I'm doing that too.
Oh, really? Nice.
Something.
All right, you guys. Fire's out. We appreciate you. Subscribe wherever you're listening. Leave it a review. That stuff genuinely does really help us. And enjoy the holidays. Hope you get to hang out with your friends, family, and maybe watch a little football, whatever. Shoot your bow. Start an indoor league.
Go Lions.
Go Lions. Segment coming on
11-1
that.
for the first time ever.
Segment coming on that. Yeah, next week probably.